It's such a small thing, really. Two people standing together at a film festival, dressed for a warm London evening, smiling for a photograph. But when that couple is Ben Shephard and his wife Annie, and when public sightings like this are genuinely rare, that ordinary moment suddenly becomes something viewers can't stop talking about. Because here's what makes this story land the way it does. Ben Shephard is one of the most familiar faces on British television, someone millions of people invite into their living rooms every single morning. And yet, despite that level of visibility, he's built an almost fortress-like privacy around his home life. So when he and Annie stepped out together at the Raindance Film Festival, dressed in that easy summer elegance, cream trousers and a white linen shirt for him, a green and white floral dress for her, it wasn't just a fashion moment. It was a rare crack in a door that's usually kept firmly closed. And that contrast is exactly why viewers reacted the way they did. We're used to seeing Ben polished, composed, delivering headlines or hosting daytime chaos with total ease. But Annie belongs to a completely different part of his life, the part he almost never lets cameras near. So when she does appear, even briefly, even just standing beside him at an event, it carries a different kind of emotional weight than a typical celebrity photo op. It feels like being let in on something private. There's something worth sitting with in how long this relationship actually goes back. The two of them met as students at the University of Birmingham, long before broadcasting studios, long before household recognition. Ben was studying dance, drama, and theater arts. Annie was leading the university's philosophy and epistemology society. Two completely different worlds of thought and expression, somehow finding their way to each other. There's something quietly romantic about that origin story, a friendship or connection that started before either of them had any idea what their lives would eventually become. And what makes this particular sighting even more meaningful is the timing. This wasn't a random public appearance. It came not long after Ben marked their 22nd wedding anniversary with a message so unguarded it stopped a lot of scrolling thumbs. He called Annie the best thing to ever happen to him, and shared how, 22 years earlier, she'd simply said, "Oh, go on then," when he proposed. That phrase alone tells you so much about the tone of their relationship. Not a grand, theatrical yes. Just something warm, understated, and completely genuine, which honestly feels like it sums up how Ben chooses to talk about her in general. Because when he has opened up about Annie, even briefly, the language he's used carries real emotional depth. He's described her as having stood by him through every high and low of his career, admitting he still can't quite believe she's stayed through all of it. There's a vulnerability in that kind of statement coming from someone so publicly self-assured. It suggests that behind the smooth, confident broadcaster persona, there's a man who genuinely feels lucky, maybe even a little amazed, that his marriage has lasted this long in an industry that isn't always kind to relationships. He's also spoken about their dynamic in a way that reveals real self-awareness. Ben has described Annie as more solitary than him, someone who's genuinely happiest in her own company, which might explain exactly why she tends to stay out of the spotlight he lives in every day. And rather than resenting that difference, he seems to admire it, crediting her as the steady influence who shaped their home and, in his words, made him better at being a father to their two sons, Sam and Jack. That detail matters more than it might seem at first. Because so much of the emotion in this story isn't really about a red carpet appearance at all. It's about what that appearance represents. A rare glimpse into a partnership built quietly, deliberately, away from cameras, by two people who apparently decided early on that not everything needed to be shared with an audience. And maybe that's exactly why fans respond so strongly whenever Annie does appear. It's not celebrity gossip curiosity. It's something closer to reassurance. In an industry full of very public relationships that don't always last, here's a couple who met as students, built a life together, raised two sons largely away from headlines, and are still choosing each other 22 years later. So when you watch that photo from Raindance, maybe what actually stays with you isn't the outfit or the event itself. Maybe it's the quiet reminder that some of the most meaningful relationships in the public eye are the ones we're allowed to see the least. What do you think stood out most in this story? The rarity of seeing them together, or everything Ben has quietly revealed about how much she means to him?